Welcome to another episode of Heated Conversations. We are back in Wisconsin with another Division III. We have head coach Lauren Karnitz of the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. They are the back-to-back national champions of Division III gymnastics. Super excited that she is joining the podcast to talk about her program, talk a little bit about her. And remember to always subscribe, to share, to like, to leave a comment. Let's welcome Lauren to the episode. Lauren, welcome to the episode. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Before we kind of get this podcast really going with all of our, conversations about your program, you personally, I have three questions for you. Now, this new one, this last one is going to be new to our listeners and viewers, but I want to start it off with you. Okay. So I'm going to ask the first two that they're normally used to. Okay. And then I'm going to ask this third one. So the first one is if you could have anybody cook you any meal in anybody in the world, who would you have cook you that meal? And what would you request of them to make you?
Um, I I think if when talking about anybody ever, I always think about someone who inspires me. So typically it would be someone within the sports world. So honestly, if I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with Kobe Bryant, not about basketball. I'm not a basketball fan, to be honest with you, but like the inspirational like means of him getting to where he would be. And my comfort food is always Italian food. And I know that he lived in Italy at some point growing up. So it would be like a spaghetti and meatballs, and then just have that conversation on mindset, how he got that Mamba mentality, and how he was able to just have that like relentless pursuit of success.
Now, have you listened to much of his material and have you implemented any of the stuff that you know of what he's done or even his coach? Because he had his coach, which I have his book here. He's written the book Relentless, which I can pull up in a little bit. One of his coaches who kind of worked on some of these mindset things with him. Um, did you implement that in your team to kind of build your program now, being the head coach, going to your 17th season, and now back-to-back national champions, to be able to have some of those principles that he used to build your team to kind of get them to that point where they're able to perform at a high level?
So it's really interesting. So initially growing up, Michael Jordan was like 100% my like I idolized him. As I've become an adult, I've realized that maybe as a person, he's not as much of the type of person I would align myself with. Um, and it has been more or less in Kobe's passing that I've realized some of the things um, that he did, or how he addressed things. I actually have not read Relentless, but I kind of, so it hasn't all been that, but it has been fueled by some of these things that he would do, and and the idea that for me, I think that it's you never know, right? Like you never know what you could be if you don't try. And
Right.
I think a lot of times gymnasts hold themselves from trying things because they might fail.
Yeah.
And I think that fail was never really something that Kobe was worried about, or even Michael Jordan for that matter. That how can I fail at something I haven't even tried?
Yeah.
Um, and and so then when you turn that into the context of like skills, it's like, yeah, but I tried the skill and I failed. But you didn't try the next turn, and the next turn you might succeed,
Right.
right? And so continuously going towards that direction. I think for our success as a team, we really don't focus as much on the idea of winning
Yeah.
as it is the idea of taking the opportunities and being grateful for the opportunities that you've been given, and
Yeah.
give it everything you have in that moment. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so then taking off some of that pressure, like there's no sense in putting that pressure on you because you just don't know what the next step might be.
Correct. Yeah.
So but I'm now going to check out that book because I think that I'm writing it down actually.
Yeah, it's by Tim Grover for anybody who else may want to read that book. It's a very good book, and it's like Kobe's kind of mindset coach. He worked a lot with him on that and kind of build that mentality and work through a lot of these things and how to become. And he's worked with, I believe, also Michael Jordan. So he's worked with a lot of elite athletes on these types of things. So it's a good book to kind of check out. And in my second question, if you could see anybody live in concert, and that's anybody live, dead or alive, who would you go see and who would you take with you?
Um, I I would definitely go see Michael Jackson. He is one of the people that I didn't get to see. Um, my husband Bruce and I do all these kind of things together. I know that sounds cliche, but between him and my oldest daughter is a lot easier to take to things, but she's like my mini me. We call her LJ sometimes, Lauren Jr.
Yeah,
But I think that's kind of something that we're starting to be really passionate between her and I.
yeah,
So I would definitely go see Michael Jackson. But the one person that I say over and over that I am so disappointed I did not get to see in person was Robin Williams. So it is a
mm,
concert, but not a music concert. It is it's something that I really wish that I could have seen his like absolute genius in person
yeah,
because the like when I watch his documentaries or different stand-up shows and how quick he's able to go from one concept to the next concept and build it up into this something that you never even like thought it could be.
yeah,
I that is one person that I really wish I could have seen in concert, but didn't get a chance to.
yeah. So are you connected or do you really enjoy watching like Miss Doubtfire or even the original Jumanji where he's in those acting roles and not as a comedian? Um, do you really appreciate him in those roles as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm back to Mork and Mindy too. Like I am a big fan of Robin Williams and I think anybody who can write and create their own stuff, which is why I love Michael Jackson. I am a huge Beatles fan, but I did get to see Paul McCartney in concert because I had this philosophy. I'm like, I need to see these people before they pass on. That's why I feel like we're going all the way to Germany to see Taylor Swift because I feel like there is this genius about it that they have created something that is so significant to our generation that I want to see.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not even that I'm a huge Swiftie, right? Like I love her music, but also the fact that she creates and she works so hard. I mean, her motto is like, I work hard and I'm nice to people, and that's why I got to where I am.
Yeah.
And I think that with Robin Williams, I love watching even was it Patch Adams or I've watched I mean like I remember watching Hook over and over and over again, and he's not funny in that, but like there's an or Goodwill Hunting or what's the poetry one?
I'm not sure because I haven't really fought. I only know those two really
Yeah,
movies from
Goodwill
him.
Hunting, obviously, if you haven't seen Goodwill Hunting, you got to see it.
Okay.
But Dead Poets Society, there, some of the things that between that and Good Morning Vietnam, he's in those, and he's not like necessarily funny. Like it's more serious in some of those shows, but man, it it's the wittiness and the craft that really does it for me.
Yeah. And where were you July of 2009 when the world found out that Michael Jackson had passed away?
Actually, it was June
Yes,
2009.
okay, you're right.
And the reason why I know is because I was getting married.
Okay.
So it was on all the TVs. I mean, it's not a funny situation, but I actually very much remember that. It was on all the TVs in the hotel where we were all staying before our wedding. So I very much have a vivid memory of that. And And obviously, I also know where I was when we found out Kobe passed away. We were competing against Texas women's. And I remember my athletes coming out of the locker room being like, is this even real? And actually, I was standing next to the Kent State coach, Craig Ballard, and he like said the same thing. He's like, I saw the same thing too. And so, like, it's really interesting that in those moments, like, I like remember exactly where I was,
Yeah.
especially for those two.
Yeah, especially with people I feel like who are really significant to the world, but even for us personally, ones that we feel some type of connection to. Either we followed their life journey through their art or, have some type of connection because of whatever it is. When things like that come across our phones, and a lot of times it's surreal. We're like, okay, this can't be real, especially in a world where things can be made up all the time, right? There's been times where there's headlines that Justin Bieber just passed away. You look on your phone and Justin Bieber hasn't passed away, or some of
Right.
these other people. And just to kind of get people, clickbait and stuff like that. But when someone who we almost feel is invincible in like a Kobe Bryant or even like a Michael Jackson who brought so much to people, you would think they would live on literally forever. And
Mm-hmm.
a day comes, especially with Kobe, where he was young, right? And something like just taking a helicopter trip, and with his daughter to go to a basketball tournament and, something that would just seem normal to do. And for that to happen, right? And even just with Michael Jackson, like his last tour, right? And him being so iconic and it all of a sudden happening before his tour could ever really go on to actual live productions where people could go and view it and stuff like that. And it's kind of cool how they kind of made still a production out of it with, the rehearsals and stuff like that and some of his past stuff. But, I think those things are really essential, especially when we think about what we do as coaches, the
Yeah.
people that we tie to, right? And both sports and music. And I feel like they intertwine so much. When you go to a competition, music is such a big part, right? That's what connects people to the floor routines, is that connection. The other thing too is in between you go to any event, it's not going to be silent in between like you're changing event or in between a routine, right? There's always music that's around, and for those who are probably similar ages to myself and Michael Jackson was one of those people that really established, what dance could be or what it could look like, right? And to be able to be an inspiration for so many of the artists that we're listening to now, like Chris Brown, right? We see Chris Brown being such an inspiration, or Usher, and that's those types of people got their inspiration from Michael Jackson, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important to do that. And you had mentioned that you would be going to Germany, which actually leads me to my third question. So if you could go anywhere, travel anywhere in the world, where would you like to go, and what means of transportation would you ideally like to take to get there? And you can make it up however you want, be how creative you want, even if it doesn't make sense.
Um, so I have been very fortunate. It's something that's really important is to have experiences in life. When I was in graduate school for counseling, I read a book by Mary Pfeiffer called Writing to Change the World. And it's not the greatest title. Like I don't think I'm super inspired when I hear the title, but the book itself is really about like taking control of your life and doing with it what you want to do and don't wait.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I was like, it was always a conversation like, oh, I want to go to Europe. Oh, I want to go to Europe. And it's like, but it's scary, but it's this, but it's that. And so then it was like, I had told my husband, I'm like, I'm booking a flight and everything else we'll just figure it out. But if I don't book the flight, we'll never do it.
Yeah.
And since then, like we just do all these different things because we want to explore and we want to see something different outside of our own daily lives. So yes, we're going to the Olympics in Paris and we're going to Taylor Swift in Germany all in one trip. However, if I would love to see the Pacific countries, like towards Asia, like Thailand, Bali. I would like to go to Fiji, and 100%, I want to be on a catamaran. So I love the water. I love anything to do with the ocean. I'm like legit Moana.
Yeah.
But I we've been on catamaran rides and they are like the best. It's the smoothest ride. You can sit out in the netting and like relax, or you can, like you have a variation of how you want to ride. And I know that me and my friends have talked about it at some point. It's like, you can actually, instead of doing an Airbnb, you can do a catamaran and they take you from place to place. And I'm like, one day I want to do that.
That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought about that, but that'd be really, really cool. And
Yeah.
in this time of the year, really for gymnastics coaches, you're traveling a lot, right? And you're going to different places. And the hard thing really with gymnastics as coaches, because it's one of those things that either in the club world, you're coaching year round, so it's hard for you to really fit in those times. You feel like to fit in those times. But also in the college world, you have your season from January through, late April, and and then you get into the dev program national. So you have that plus your meetings and stuff like that. And then you kind of have like that summer break, but it depends on your structure, right? Either you're recruiting or you have kids who are still on campus. And so it feels like you can't get away, right? And then it comes back to school time and the kids are back and you're getting ready for preseason. And then it's just this, so finding those opportunities to really go and venture out and do things for your own is really important. I think that's, it makes us human, right? Instead of
Right.
just wearing these hats. And I feel like it's one of those jobs that you don't necessarily always get designated days off, right? Where it's just like, okay, the schedule and say, hey, these are our times where, well, you kind of know with some holidays, but
Right.
for the most part, isn't like, some jobs, hey, I get to get this many days off where I can really take advantage of this and, um, to do what I want, especially go to the Olympics and go see Taylor Swift outside of the US. I think those things are cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's nice is like, as coaches, we can't ask something of our athletes that we can't do ourselves, right? Or we could. I don't believe in that, right? And so I think modeling that, like taking that time, I mean, I am 100% committed all the time and I give up a lot of things for my athletes, even with having a family. And so like I expect them to do the same. There's a lot of sacrifices that I expect them to make to be a part of this program.
Yeah.
But then also modeling the fact that like when we have an opportunity to, we need to make sure we build it in that there's this time that we can take to break, regroup, and then come back, and that it's necessary. So like for me, our season ends during spring break. My kids have off of school, but I don't. So I take, and my athletes know this, I take a little chunk of time in April that I go to the beach, get away, whether my kids are in school or not, we take it. I don't care if they're missing school. It is necessary for our family to come back together, reconnect, right? After season's done, because I've taken so much time away from my family, that it's necessary. Now, mind you, it usually lines up with a recruiting event, and so then I'll take a little step away so I can go recruit from the beach. But ultimately, I kind of remind my athletes that like it is necessary at times to take that step away, but then also when it's time to commit, we commit
Yeah.
fully.
Right. Right. And then, you know, even just talking about family, how family is really important for you to reconnect. Let's go all the way back into who Lauren is and when did her journey of gymnastics start? And can you kind of even talk about where you were raised and how your family dynamics were that really created you to be who you are today, to be able to coach these athletes now for 17, going on 7, well, in your 17th season now at Oshkosh?
So I grew up right outside of Chicago, in the suburb called Des Plaines, Illinois, right by O'Hare Airport. I went to the American Academy, in Wheeling, Illinois, when I was probably 8 years old is when I started there. I did Park District, which not everybody has, but it's like YMCA. I did Park District before that just to see like, am I good at this thing? I started competing level 5 when I was like in 4th grade, I think. I will say that it's very interesting. I would like to say that the family dynamic around it was positive. I think it probably is a little more toxic than it was positive. It was my dad constantly watching for 3-4 hour practices from the windows and telling me to focus. So there wasn't that like ability. I had a fantastic coaches while I was little, and I think that that was super helpful because I wasn't getting it as much. My dad was much more strict with me with it, and so it wasn't something that I necessarily did to have fun. It was you're going to focus, you're going to work hard, you're not going to goof off, you're not going to stand around. And so I think if you like constantly feel that from behind, like it's really hard to do it. But I did very much love the sport. Now my parents were divorced, so now my dad's pushing me on that side. My mom's like, why don't you just quit? If you're that unhappy, just quit. And it's not the sport that I was ever unhappy with. I absolutely actually love this sport 100%. So as I went through and kind of negotiated my place in the sport, once I had more control over my gymnastics, where I was doing it because I wanted to do it, I think right around high school to college, like I found a lot of joy with it because it became more of like what I wanted to do for the reasons I wanted to do it. Um, and I would say coming to college to do gymnastics was probably the best experience that I've ever had. And I tell my athletes that all the time, is that like, these are my friends that I've made like for a lifetime. And now you are doing it. You don't have the pressure necessarily of your parents, if that was a pressure for you. You don't have that constant like looking over your shoulder telling you didn't do something right, or you did do something right, or it's wrong, or having my whole identity wrapped up in gymnastics. And then now being like, oh, maybe it's something I love to do instead of who I am. At that point, that was when I started realizing that. And that's when my more healthy relationship with gymnastics started occurring, was in college. And it breaks my heart when people's relationship with gymnastics prior to that is very similar, and they never get that opportunity to find out that it's something they love instead of who they are.
Yeah. No, and that's the helicopter parenting is hard, right? Because a lot of times it depends on the parents' investment. They want to see their athletes doing well, or if they're obviously paying for it, they want to make sure that the time is being spent wisely, right? And so that kind of happens, or just being protective. And sometimes parents may not realize, me being a coach and having now my own child, may not realize what they're really doing. They may be thinking they're protecting their athlete or trying to teach them something, but really them being there and experiencing certain things on their own or with somebody else is going to teach them a lot of the things that they need, especially if you've entrusted your child to certain coaches, and you've hopefully vetted them and, throughout your time there have found out kind of their intentions with, the program or your athlete. Then it puts you in a place where you can sit back and kind of be comfortable, right? And you also know your own kid, and being able to know your own child and seeing them develop in a different environment outside of you. Because now if I go home and my parents are like this with me, I go to somewhere where I'm doing something that I'm supposed to be passionate about, and my parents are acting the same way with me as they would at home. And then I go out somewhere else, it's the same way. And then imagine if they went to school with you, it just gets tiresome, right? And it's
Well,
hard
and
for.
I think too, it's saying you know your children, right? Like Do you really know them? Do you want to get to know them? Or are you telling them what they should be? And that's like something that I've really tried to be hands off with my daughter, or like ask her, like, what did you learn from practice today? What did you think? You know, she doesn't do gymnastics because I don't, I struggle with it a little bit. I
Yeah.
want her to do other things because that's all I had. I didn't have anything else.
Yeah.
And so I want her to try a lot of different things. And in her, like, she did swimming. She made it to state as a 7-year-old, but hated doing it. Fine. Finish the season. We'll do something else. We tried something else. Soccer, loves it. Absolutely loves it. Okay, well, let's try another sport. But I love soccer. I understand that, but let's see what else we have, you know, like, and so like allowing them to like experience life instead of like telling them what they have to do, I think is really helpful. And like then I get to figure out like what it is, who her identity is, right? Like she loves being a part of the group culture, and she loves that social aspect of sports where she's like working her butt off for that person next to her. And a lot of kids don't learn that in our sport until they're in college, right? But my other daughter, I truly believe she's much more of an individual sport person. She's a little more of an introvert. She'd be okay doing something on her own. But that's me getting to know them and figuring out their personality. And that's what I encourage parents to do. A lot of the time is listen, ask, and don't put what you wish them to be on them. And it's easier said than done, but I think, yes, I got to the point where I'm coaching college, and I absolutely love it, and I'm still a part of the sport, and I couldn't imagine anything else. However, I think that there was definitely a time where maybe the sport was connected to maybe some negative feelings instead of those positive ones
Yeah.
for me.
Right. And some of the things that could be positive is mentors. And having an important mentor. You had mentioned that when you were doing gymnastics, you had great coaches. Can you talk about throughout your journey from starting level 5 in the 4th grade or even younger till now, who are some important mentors that you really feel like have impacted your life and your journey, and you've taken things from to be able to give to your current athletes?
So when I first started competing gymnastics, I had a coach named Bill Wall, and it's crazy because you know everything kind of comes full circle, and I actually have 2 of his athletes now. He's coaching at a different gym, and I hadn't seen him in years, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere I get this camper that's interested in being on our team, and she comes up to me and she goes, "Hey, I wanted to let you know my coach says hi, and that he'd love for you to come down and visit the gym." And it ended up being that coach that way back when I was first starting to compete was my coach. I think the one thing he did was make learning fun. Instead of the stress of perfecting skills, it was like, don't you want to do this? Don't you want to get your kip? Don't you want to um, try to be the best you can be? Yeah, yes, I want to. You know,
Yeah.
and when you talk to kids like that, of course they're going to want to do good, right?
Right.
But if you're being like, well, no, you didn't do this, and you got to have this, and you know, it's the energy, right? I remember voluntarily being like, yeah, we want to do Sunday practice, absolutely. And so we ended up being just this really dynamic little level 5 group, right? And now I struggled as we went with some of the coaches a little bit when I was in level 8, level 9. I got to level 10, and then it was like, you know what, I really don't enjoy bars. And so I didn't really want to have to do some of those skills that were necessary in level 10. So in high school, I switched over to high school gymnastics. And my coach at that point was definitely an opportunity for me to like get away. So like my dad couldn't watch practice anymore because that would be weird to go to the high school and watch the practices. It's not like there's a sitting room like in club. So I had her really trying to be super positive with me. Miss Brown was, she was also a teacher. So it was really great to have her positivity, energy. She was younger. So it was an opportunity to kind of really just do gymnastics to enjoy it and not for the stress of it. And it was nice because I gained more recognition um, being on an actual team and being one of the top athletes at my high school. People started knowing who I was. So it was really cool to have that experience.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I got to college, I had Natalie Walsh, who is now at Illinois, as my coach, as an assistant coach my freshman year, and head coach sophomore, junior, senior year, and super motivating. Really high high positivity. Definitely a can-do attitude. So that really changed my ability to be like, okay, I got this,
Yeah.
because she believed in me, I believed in me. And so I would say my gymnastics continued to grow at that point when maybe most people get stagnant. I feel like my senior year of college was probably my best as far as my ability to perform. And that was really just from her leadership.
And I think that's, it's important, right? To kind of have those things. And you had, I wouldn't really call it a balance, but you kind of had a yin and yang where you
Mm-hmm.
had, you know, a upbringing that might have been not as ideal, but you had other people who could kind of fill in that place, right? And then throughout your journey that you have people that you could really look up to. And I think that's important because that's what we do as coaches. We don't always know what might be happening outside of our sphere of influence, and to
Mm-hmm.
be able to be one of those people who hopefully is creating a positive impact on one's life is really important.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I want to encourage, young athletes that, and we had this conversation this week with my athletes, is that I don't want to think about positives and negatives, right? I want to think about what have you learned, how are you going to grow from this situation, right? And for me, I was fortunate that instead of having maybe just that heaviness of the strictness um, break me and pull me down, it had me do it in spite of, right?
Okay.
Fine. You know what? Then I'm going to do this anyways. Or you know what? And so I got a little bit of that edge that I bring to my team now because of that.
Yeah.
So really, it wasn't a negative experience. It was a learning experience on how I adapt to things. I don't let that get to me. And my team doesn't know it, but we're having this conversation today. Is I'm gonna bet on me 10 out of 10 times, and um, that mixed with the people that believed in me allowed me to get that edge that I don't care what you have as a competitor. I think I'm better,
Yeah.
right? I believe in me to be better. Now, what better means, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like this weekend, we went to Big Ten. Are we going to beat a fully funded scholarship D1 program? Probably not. But there was something in me that bet on us to succeed, bet on us to get 3.98 pluses, right? I bet on us because I believe in us so emphatically that 10 out of 10 times, I'm going to say we're going to succeed.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where we're going with our practice today is I had an athlete tell me, well, when you put me up against her, because we were playing a game,
Yeah.
when you put me up against her, I was like, oh man, I'm not going to win this. That was her first thought. Her first thought was, I'm going against this gymnast and I'm not going to win this. Although, if you looked at the stats from this past weekend, that gymnast actually beat the other one. Okay, so now we need to change this attitude that they're not betting on themselves.
Yeah.
They're actually being like, nah, you're going to get this. What? Like, I want them to believe in themselves so emphatically that 10 out of 10 times they're going to believe that they're going to succeed.
Right.
And that's kind of some of the things that I think, like, I don't know how I got there. I don't know how I got to that belief system or that kind of confidence, but I think part of it had to do with what people would call the negative, but I just call it like that learning experience that helped me develop and grow into what I knew I wanted to be as a parent or what I wanted to be as a coach. And even if you don't have that modeled back to you, let's say I didn't have great coaches, I can still figure out how to be a good coach out of what I didn't think worked for me.
Right.
Right. And so not everything has to be a negative or positive or even like tied to your identity. Like it is an experience and an opportunity to be better.
Yeah. No, and I love
So,
that. No, I really like that perspective because a lot of times that is important to really talk in that manner because we really tell our athletes that a lot of times, right? But we may speak in conversations like this in that using that language because when you're because in our sport it has a higher fail rate than it does a success rate, way higher, right? And especially when you kind of think about how many routines did you have to hit or did you have to miss in order to make that one in competition?
mhm.
How many lessons did you have to learn about correcting these skills or going back to basics because of errors you're making? How many times have you had to do a full turn because you hit everything in your routine and fell on that silly full turn, right? How many
And
times?
yeah, and we're really talking about how performance is not tied to identity. You're not a bad person. You don't suck because you performed lower than what you thought your ability was.
Yeah.
And so, really trying to take away the idea of negative and positive and think about everything as like, how are we going to grow? How am I going to grow? Now, one of my athletes brought up the idea of why. She struggled a lot. And this past weekend, she got a 9.6 on an event that, like, I could not, she's a junior. It
Yeah.
was her record high score and she's really not been in the lineup a whole lot, if at all. And her idea was, I decided to change my mindset. I'm not bad at bars. I missed my cast handstand. Why did I miss my cast handstand? I'm not bad at cast handstands. I did something that wasn't right in order to make my cast handstand short. So now what do I need to do to change it? But so often we take the easy way out in our thought process and say, well, that was bad. Well, I'm bad at this. I can't do that. No, we just need to find another way to do it. And also, you're not bad. It's not your identity. That skill didn't go right. That routine didn't go right. It doesn't mean that you can't do this sport or you're not capable. You are capable. And so I would say this team is one of the most talented that didn't come in talented to this season. We've
Yeah.
created this
Yeah.
because of the ability to learn, grow, and develop.
Yeah.
We were able to take juniors and seniors that have never competed these specific skills or have never competed in college, these events, and make them a group that could win a national championship. And all I've asked them is for the opportunity to do that. Get us to nationals, give us that opportunity. I'm not saying we're going to win, and that is not the goal. Our goal is to have the opportunity to be at nationals, perform our skills with the best.
Yeah.
And so trying to change that mindset, we actually today, me and one of my athletes, we talked about when you're in a negative space, right? When you're feeling down and someone comes over to you to try to help pull you up, a little bit of them gets pulled down with you, right? Because they're coming and they're trying to pull you up, even coaches, they're trying to pull you up, but you know as well as I know, you can't do it for them. You cannot pull it. If they don't want to make it happen, it's not going to happen. So in that effort, some of your energy now has been sucked out of you. So we talked about this visual of like being in a hole, right? You're in a hole, you're in there by yourself, right? Nothing you can do. Then you're in this hole and your teammate is reaching down trying to grab you, and you have your hands on your side and they're reaching, trying to grab you, trying to pull you up, and they fall into. Now we have this hole, and you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I'm going to push my teammate up. So I'm pushing my teammate up, and now my hands are up, ready to take that help, right? And so we talked about this idea, like when you're down, if you try to pull your teammates up in what they're doing, you're going to get pulled up too. But if you're down and you're asking them to help pull you up, but you're not really willing to take it, then you're not in a space that you can get pulled up. And as a result, you're taking a little bit away from them, which is not making the team the best it can be. And so I actually challenged her today. I said, I want you to focus on everybody but yourself and encouraging them. Because what I saw in her at the meet this past weekend, she fell twice on bars. And she gets off, and you could tell, like, she is not happy. And I saw her go like this, no. And she shook her head no. She shook her head, said no, walked over to her teammate that was about to go on bars and started hyping her up. And then I never saw her be upset again for that rest of that day. Because she made a decision that it wasn't about her anymore. She was going to help her teammate. And in that, pushing up, she came out of that funk, that disappointment. And so we're working on challenging them to do that this week. It's like, you know what? Focus on everybody else and helping them and pushing them forward. And then that frustration you feel, I'm betting 10 times out of 10, you'll get out of that.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of something
yeah,
we've been working on.
I love that. And can you kind of talk about your staff as well and how you guys kind of work together in your different roles to kind of implement that? And then also follow that up with talking about the leaders that you have within your team to kind of create some of that culture and how you structure it.
So I have two amazing assistant coaches. One is a full-time assistant and one is a volunteer assistant. My volunteer assistant is Radia Jarvis, who I had the pleasure of coaching for 4 years. And then she came back as a graduate student and helped us win another national championship. And as an athlete, she was an incredible leader. And so a lot of these athletes on the team were teammates with her. So it's been a huge help to have her be on the other side of it, but also have their ear as like a former teammate. Her and I have very similar personalities, much more just aggressive, like, we got this, let's go, like, just do, like, there's no, we don't need to think, we can just like go for it, like, you know, and that kind of thing. My assistant coach, Aaliyah Tron, Kastmeyer now, she just got married, came to us she was an athlete at Lindenwood and now is our assistant coach, and she has a much more mild mannered personality, but just as like competitive and energetic as we are, in a different way. And so it's really helped to connect to some of the introverts and extroverts on our team. So that's been super helpful, where she might say something and they understand, where I might say something and they're like, I don't know what you mean by that. You know, that's too much for me to think about. I'm not that high energy of a personality or whatnot. And then she can connect with them in a different way. And I would say, as far as like leaders, we have some very like loud, like over the top, happy-go-lucky leaders, but then we have some quiet leaders. Haley Burns is one of our seniors that in any situation really does have that mindset that we've been talking about all week. Like, if she's struggling with something, it's not a struggle. It's like, okay, so how do I make this better? She doesn't get frustrated when she's not doing it right. It just motivates her to figure out how to fix her layout, step out so she can stay on the balance beam, how to change how she's stepping into the leap so then her chest can be up instead of leaning forward. And she's very good at compartmentalizing that stuff, which then other athletes look at that and say, oh, I want to be that. And then it kind of pulls them up to her level. And I've asked her, like, don't step aside and help someone that's down if that's going to pull you down. So you can pull them up by what you're doing. like that can pull them up, work to my level. So she actually has a teammate that on bars, she's like, well, I'm going to hit more handstands than you today. And that teammate's like, I'm going to hit more handstands than you, so they do that competition, and now she's pulled her up, and had that can-do attitude. And she's been really great. I would say she's a huge leader on beam and bars, and a really big part of the success on those events. Lydia Hayden is a sophomore who is a little quieter, but that like poised confidence has also been something that has resonated with maybe more of those introverted athletes. And it's really nice. We're very lucky to have a combination of those passionate athletes and coaches that have the different personality types, because it's allowed different people to connect with different coaches in a way that maybe they can't connect with others. And so that's been, I think, one of our greatest assets this year.
And I think those, leaders, having those leaders who like that competitive edge, I think that plays a huge factor into how you guys got to be back-to-back national champions. And obviously when I talk about leaders too, having one who came back to be able to be a part of that and can relate to her teammates. And,
and she was part of a team. So in 2018, we were second to last at conference, and Radia came in as a freshman 2018, 2019, right? And was like, I'm choosing different. Like as a freshman, her class was like, we're choosing different. This isn't happening. We're hosting nationals this year. We're going to be there. And I would say everybody didn't bet on us except for us. And I was like, I don't care what we do. I am not letting us not make it to nationals. Like this is happening. And so, we started this process. We actually took second place. So we went from second to last to second place in conference. I think you were around at that time. In 2019, were you around?
No, I had just left. So we had won in 2018 when I was at Whitewater. And then that next season is when I moved to Texas.
Yeah. So we were second to last that season that we competed against you. And then we ended up taking fourth at nationals, and they were like, fourth. Like we could have done all these things better. And then came in the next year, just even more passionate. We win conference for the first time in 26 years, and then get shut down because of COVID. And so after COVID, it was really a change in mindset. We had that competitiveness, but it really was centered around gratitude. Yeah. And like just being grateful for the opportunity and not allowing yourself to do anything less than what you're capable, and just seeing what happens. And right. Well, we know how that happened. Yeah. That worked out pretty good for us.
Yeah. So. No, I love that. And can you kind of talk about, this is outside of gymnastics, we'll kind of finish off with some gymnastic stuff. So can you talk about the academic side of things? What does that look like? Both the enrollment and then the degrees that are popular, and then what is there to do around where you guys are located?
So we have an enrollment about 8,000 to 10,000 students. So we're a mid-sized school. We have a very compact campus, so it's very walkable. It's right on the river. We're really known for the water here. So there's a lot of different things to do. Obviously not right now because it's ice, but there's a lot of different things to do on the water. We have a beach nearby that you can rent, just like, renting scooters in big cities. You can rent a paddleboard, and you can swipe your card, get the paddleboard, go out onto the lake. And so we have multiple lakes, multiple rivers in this area. So it's very much a water-based town, in which I love. I said it earlier, I want to take a catamaran around the Pacific. But our major programs of emphasis, I would say nursing. We have an accredited nursing program, which is highly rated in the country. And then our kinesiology program, which has helped many of our athletes get to PT schools and OT schools. All of my athletes that have wanted to go to those schools have made it into through the admission process and into those schools. And our biology program. So within those three areas, a lot of my athletes end up finding their future professions. And so those are definitely areas that we excel at here. Um, what else? What was
What
the
is the
other part?
enrollment numbers? And
Oh
even
yeah,
just even
eight to ten
tuition too.
thousand.
Okay, and
Um,
tuition.
so what's really cool about Oshkosh is actually we have something called the Titan National Scholarship. So if you uphold certain academic requirements, which most gymnasts do because they're high achievers, you actually qualify for in-state tuition, which tuition alone, not with room and board and that kind of stuff, tuition alone is $8,000 a year, and that is it. And so a lot of people see that, and I have athletes that like have walk-on opportunities at different schools, but like the tuition cost and the fact that they can get in-state tuition really is appealing. And be a part of a program that has the desire to be successful every year, I think is something that really helps us with our recruiting process. I would say with our team, we have maintained above a 3.5 team GPA for, it's been about 6 years now. This last semester, we had a 3.68 team GPA with 7 4.0s. And really what we do to kind of cultivate that expectation is we make them be a team in the classroom too. So we separate them into their majors, put them into study halls, but then those study hall group leaders are responsible for checking in on you, making sure that you're not using your phone, checking in on grades, seeing if you need anything. And so like by them pushing themselves to have higher expectations in academics, they succeed. So it's the same thing as in the gym. We do the same thing for the classroom. So then we have students that maybe weren't great in high school getting GPAs that they were like, I would have never gotten that if it wasn't for my teammates pulling me up. So it's really cool because we do have that dynamic in the classroom too.
Yeah. And can you talk about even just your competitive environment? What does that look like? And your fan base, what is it like to compete at UW Oshkosh from a fan's perspective, and what does it do for your athletes?
We have something special that a lot of our students do for us, and it's when we're on floor, they all come and sit behind us. And so we have, it kind of feels like you have like this huge team backing you. And it's been a tradition that they've done since I've been here, where when we have floor, they come sit behind us. And so then they're high-fiving their friends and these little kids and their teammates all at the same time. And it just makes them feel like the community is behind them. I would say, we have about 300 fans at any of our meets, which doesn't seem like a lot when you're watching TV, but in our facility, it makes it feel dynamic and packed. And you can tell the difference in how they compete when they're in that environment. They just have another energy. And I think that that's just our community as a whole. It is very much, we have 70,000 people in Oshkosh. It's not a small town, but we have a very much a small town culture. We have a main street, a lot of locally owned businesses. So everybody kind of knows everybody. And it's a really special environment to be a part of. The girls will walk down the street for the farmers market and people will be congratulating them. Oh, I heard that you guys won again this year. Like, congrats, keep up the great work. And they just all know them. But if we were in a bigger city that didn't have that as much emphasis on community, you wouldn't get that. And so it's really neat when they get stopped at the grocery store and told, congratulations, or good luck this season, and we're watching you, especially in a sport that not as many people watch as much as maybe like football, basketball. It's a really it's a great environment.
Yeah. And what are some things you guys are really excited about for this upcoming season? And even with that, can you kind of give some final nuggets that you want to leave the viewers and listeners about yourself personally, any just motivation, or even just about UW Oshkosh?
I'm really lucky to be able to work at my alma mater. Um, I am here because 17 years ago, Natalie took a job at a different school, and I had one of my best friends was still on the team, and she called me and said, "We need someone to take this job." I did not think I was ready to be a head coach, and I probably was not. But I I am always wanting to make myself better. And as a coach, coaching athletes, I think one thing that I always tell them, I will find a way. I will figure it out. We'll make it happen. Trust me, I'm a doer, right? Like I tell them all the time, like we will find a solution. And so if there's athletes out there that wants a program like that, then this is definitely that environment. We have this high energy, this intensity to like just want to be and make ourselves better, right? And not settling for anything less. And I think that um, if we continue to do that, we'll continue to see success, right? Like, and success is in the eye of the beholder. So for us, that is one of my main things and my main energies is that I love this school. Like this is where I grew up as an athlete, as a person. I met my husband in an athletic training room. You know, our children are little Titan fans. Like this is our community. This is a special place for us. People have asked me like, are you gonna take another job somewhere else? Are you gonna go anywhere else? I didn't get into coaching to coach gymnastics. I got into coaching to be a Titan. And I I say I have about 7 years left. That's until like I can actually retire from the university because I'll have my 20 years in. But there is no way in my mind, and I can say that with 100% commitment to it, is that I will be a Titan until I'm done. And my next job will be like bartending on the beach or something like that. That is my next job. It won't be coaching at another university. Because my goal is to make this community stronger and us better as a university. And that's through gymnastics. I'm not here to coach gymnastics to make myself better. And so I constantly tell our athletic director that is that everything I do, in my opinion, is for the betterment of our athletes. I'm going to advocate for them all the time. If I rub people the wrong way because I want more mental health and more access to mental health, then I'm going to rub people the wrong way. But I want to make sure that my athletes and our students get everything that they need and, in my opinion, that they deserve from this institution. So I am the type of person that is going to fight for them relentlessly, and I think all my athletes believe that. All my athletes believe that even in the tough times, there is a lesson to be learned and a goal to continue to better ourselves. And I think that they know it comes from a good place. And I think that with us and our team upholding our expectations, setting them and upholding them, and being very good at communicating, all of that has really helped our team become the team that it is today. And it doesn't matter who comes in and who goes, we maintain that level of commitment to what it means to be a Titan. And so I think that that's why we continuously now are seeing this success, is because of that commitment to the standard we have set.
Yeah.
But this is a great community. And so I think that that's the one thing I want listeners, viewers to know, is that, you know, you might be like, what's Oshkosh, Wisconsin? But the moment you come here, you're like, oh, I get it. And I think that I am incredibly passionate about the school and this community. And I just want everybody to have an opportunity to see what we have here. So,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your season to be able to have this conversation. And hopefully a lot of people get to hear this and get to know you and get to see the passion and hear the passion from you and make that connection, either to become fans of Oshkosh or to either pursue it as an athlete and for parents to really kind of feel, that they know you at a different level. And when they start their recruiting process, they feel a lot more comfortable. And so, again, I thank you and I thank everybody for viewing this and listening to this podcast. And I think it's really awesome how Lauren kind of talked about the things that she's really passionate about. And in our time, and we've seen it a lot during COVID, is where mental health really became something that came to the forefront, and having her be an advocate for something like that. And if you need a place where you're going to find the resources or someone who's going to fight for you in areas that may be challenging in life, or even in areas of life that you feel fulfilled in, Oshkosh might be a place for you. So I will link their contact below. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Heated Conversations.